All right, guys, welcome to the May push-up challenge along with a bonus no sugar, no alcohol challenge, May 2024. The challenge is to do as many push-ups as possible in the month of May. You can accumulate these push-ups inside or outside of the gym. And for the no sugar, no alcohol component of it, this isn't a strategy we recommend as a long-term plan. When you do an all or nothing approach, you tend to eventually get frustrated, fall off the wagon, and go crazy in the wrong direction. However, it can be a helpful strategy to bring some awareness around what you're eating, and specifically when you avoid added sugar, you're going to begin to learn to read nutrition labels and understand where a lot of the extra calories and junk in your diet is coming from, because a lot of processed food, most processed food, and by processed food, I mean anything that comes in a package and has more than one ingredient, has added sugar in it. Even if it doesn't say sugar in the ingredient list, check the nutrition label. If it says any number other than 0 grams of added sugar, it has something in it. And that includes natural sweeteners like honey and agave, and of course corn syrup and other things that wouldn't be considered natural sweeteners, but are added sugars. You are allowed to have fruits and vegetables as much as you want. The goal of this actually is to help you learn to replace added sugars with whole unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, meats. So use this as an opportunity to recalibrate and learn some new habits that you can then take beyond this month. For example, if you have a sweet tooth in the evenings after dinner and you tend to go for something with added sugar in it, find a replacement you really like. Maybe it's cottage cheese with some berries in it, or unsweetened Greek yogurt with some berries in it, something like that. And we'll share some ideas throughout the month. But then continue that habit on beyond just this month and reap the benefits of changing the way you eat. It's the foundation of your health and fitness, nutrition is. And as much as I would love to say you can just train as much as you can and eat whatever you want, it just doesn't work that way. So it's really important to pay attention to this stuff, and avoiding added sugar is a helpful strategy to bring some awareness and control around your diet. And by diet, I just mean what you eat. And then the no alcohol component. It's not that alcohol is evil and that you can never have alcohol as part of a healthy diet that supports your goals. But when you're just not paying attention to it and it's just like, beer here, beer there, glass of wine here, mixed drink there, whenever you go out, those things add up. It's a lot of empty calories, and it's not only the calories in the beverages when you're drinking them, it's what tends to go along with the environment that usually accompanies drinking alcohol. Number one, the environment. Number two, the reduction of the ability to make good decisions. And you know what I'm talking about. In situations where you have a beer or two or a glass of wine, there also tends to be snacky foods, fried food, stuff that's just not going to support your goals, and or your ability to make a difficult decision in the moment is decreased, and you don't have the ability to make that decision to say no to something that you would normally just say no to. So for those reasons, we are challenging you to avoid added sugar and avoid alcohol for the month of May. You can do it. I want you to pay attention to how it affects not only your body composition, but your mood, your performance in the gym, your sleep, and just your quality of life, just how you feel. So I'm looking forward to doing this along with everyone. Right now, I'm going to go over the push-up, something that is often overlooked and just kind of looked at as a throwaway movement, or maybe just something you do in a warm-up. You don't pay a lot of attention to it. If you've been at this gym for a while, you've heard me harp on this before. so this won't be new to you. I'm going to go over some basic points of performance for a push-up. First of all, body in a straight line. So think of this like a moving plank. Your entire body is rigid throughout the movement. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so I have a nice plank here. Everything's nice and tight, squeezing my belly button quads. And notice that my body is moving and staying in a straight line the whole time, like a moving plank. Next is full range of motion. Your chest needs to touch the ground, not your nose, not your chin, not your hips, your chest, not your belly, your chest. And then hit this full elbow extension at the top of the rep. Chest to the ground, full elbow extension. And then just some points of performance to help you improve your strength and do quality push-ups. If you think about creating torque with your arms by corkscrewing your hands into the ground, that'll actually point your elbow pit slightly forward. It's going to keep your shoulders safe and allow you to engage your triceps, lats a little bit more. Make sure your hands are placed a little bit wider than shoulder width. And like I said, stay tight throughout that movement and always hit full range of motion, even when you move fast. All right. Now I'm going to show you a few faults that we commonly see with push-ups. The number one fault, or the first fault, these aren't in any order, I'm going to go over would be shortened range of motion, and this can happen in a couple of different ways. The first way would be not going all the way down to the ground. So maybe to here, and then pushing up, or maybe you just hit your belly to the ground, but your chest isn't on the ground. That would also not be a complete rep. Another one that's not as common, but it happens, is where your hips don't move, or they don't move much, and it kind of looks like this. Okay, also not a good rep. So this would be some examples of lack of range of motion. Oh, another one would be not extending your elbow all the way. Kind of face this way a little bit. So you do hit the ground with your chest, but then not extending your elbows all the way. We want to see that. All right, so range of motion is one. And then another one would be what I would call a lack of that straight line that I've talked about, where you're worming off the ground, or actually that example of your hips staying up that I just showed you is another one of those, where you're losing the integrity of your core, your midline stabilization. And the worming looks like this. Sometimes it can be extreme. Okay, that's a pretty obvious one. Here's one that's not as obvious. Still worming. So this one is not as obvious, but this would still be worming. Okay, one way to know if you're worming is if your knees touch the ground. In a proper push-up, your knees shouldn't touch the ground because your quads are flexed, your butt's flexed, your abs, and that should pull your knees off the ground a little bit. So if your knees are hitting the ground at all, that means you're worming that rep a little bit. So this is a good one. My knees aren't going to touch the ground. Okay? Even with my hands off the ground, like a hand release push-up, I'm still nice and tight. My knees are off the ground. Now, if I relax at the bottom of that push-up a little bit, my knees touch the ground just slightly as I come up. That would not be a complete rep. So those are some of the common faults. There's some other ones too. Those are the ones I see most often. So keep your push-ups quality, virtuous, which just means doing the common uncommonly well. There's a reason why when people come to this gym, 75% of the time, 80% of the time, their push-ups don't look that great because most people don't do these simple common things well. You just kind of get through it, or nobody's ever told you before, which is understandable. So be virtuous with your movement because it's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you a better athlete, moving your joints through that full range of motion, gaining strength in as broad a capacity as possible. I'm going to go over some ways that you can scale your push-ups if you can do at least 5 full range of motion unassisted push-ups, I want you to stick with that through this challenge. Even if that means instead of doing big sets, you're doing lots of small sets throughout the day. But if you're at a point where even 5 is, you just can't do it yet, or by that 5th rep, like you're really struggling, you're starting to lose your midline, then doing some scaled push-ups could be appropriate for you, and you can still count those reps. So knee push-ups would be one way, okay? I think most people know what those are. Still get full range of motion. But some other less common ways would be hand elevated push-ups, which we do quite a bit. So hands elevated on a box, a bench, even a barbell on the J-cups. Chest all the way to the object. Full elbow extension, just like a push-up on the floor. That's another good way that you can make it a little bit easier and get a little more volume in, just like how with pull-ups, we use bands, or you can do ring rows and other ways to assist those. All right, I'm going to go over 2 more less common ways that you can scale your push-ups, all right? And one would be to use a band, and you can do banded push-ups. All right, so if you put this band around your triceps like this, it's just going to give you a little bit of assistance. It's going to give you a little bit of assistance coming out of the bottom of that push-up. Okay, so that would be one way, and you can use different thickness of bands to do that with. And then the other less common way, but I really like this one a lot, is to use a foam roller under your shins or under your quads to start with. And what this does is it changes the fulcrum point from your toes to somewhere further up on your body. So you're just pushing up a little bit less of your body weight. So on your quads, this would be the easier as compared to lower on my legs. Still going to have a rigid midline, still going to go all the way down. And then you can move this further down, make it a little bit harder. It's still a little bit easier. Still a little bit easier than on your toes. So that's something that's not as common, but can be really effective because you're still, with a band, you have a little more help out of the bottom, and then the band doesn't help you as much toward the top. With this method, it's kind of like with a ring row where you're changing the angle of your body, but you're still using your equal effort throughout the movement. So that's something to throw in as well, just to add a little more volume to your training. Like I said, if you're someone who has 5 or less push-ups. All right, so I hope that's helpful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all get stronger through this push-up challenge. And of course, this won't hurt when it comes to Murph. Push-ups tend to be what slow people down the most, so looking forward to that as well at the end of May. If you guys need anything, let us know. See you soon.